I never imagined that the woman I loved more than my own life would one day stand in front of everyone I knew and call me a monster. But that's exactly what happened. And what I did next changed both of our lives forever. If you've ever been misunderstood, betrayed, or forced to prove your innocence when you've done nothing wrong, this story might break your heart. But maybe, just maybe, it will also give you hope. Stay with me. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what happened 3 years ago, on a night that was supposed to be the beginning of our forever. I was 28. Working 2 jobs to save for our wedding. Living in a small apartment in the city, the kind where you could hear your neighbors' conversations through the walls. Sarah was everything to me. We'd been together for 4 years. High school sweethearts who actually made it past college. Everyone said we were lucky. Everyone said we were perfect. I believed them. The thing about love is that when you're in it, really in it, you don't see the cracks forming. You don't notice when conversations become shorter. When smiles become automatic. When I love you becomes something you say out of habit rather than overwhelming feeling. I didn't notice any of that with Sarah. Every morning, I'd wake up at 5:30 to make it to my first job by 7. I worked at a logistics company doing data entry. Nothing glamorous. Nothing that made me feel alive. But it paid well enough. Then at 3, I'd rush to my second job at a local gym, where I worked the front desk until 9 at night. By the time I got home, I was exhausted. The kind of tired that settles into your bones and makes everything feel heavy. But I did it for us. For the wedding we'd planned for next spring. For the honeymoon in Greece she'd been dreaming about since she was 16. For the life we were supposed to build together. Sarah worked at a marketing firm downtown. She'd always been more ambitious than me, more driven. She had this way of lighting up a room when she walked in. People gravitated toward her. I used to feel proud of that. Proud that out of everyone, she chose me. We'd spend our evenings together when I got home, even though I was dead tired. She'd tell me about her date, the difficult clients, the office politics, the projects she was excited about. I'd listen, always listen, even when my eyes were barely staying open. You work too hard, she'd say sometimes, running her fingers through my hair as we sat on our worn-out couch. It's temporary, I'd always respond. Just until the wedding. Then I cut back to one job. I promise. She'd smile. But looking back now, I realized that smile never quite reached her eyes. Not anymore. There were signs. Of course there were signs. I just didn't want to see them. The way she started staying late at work more often. The way her phone was suddenly always face down on the table. The way she'd pull away slightly when I tried to kiss her, then cover it up with a tired laugh and an excuse about being stressed. It's just work, she'd say. This new campaign is killing me. And I believed her. Because why wouldn't I? When you love someone, you give them the benefit of the doubt. You trust them. You build your entire world around the assumption that they are being honest with you. I was so focused on building our future that I didn't see our present falling apart. It was a Friday night in October. I remember because the air had that sharp autumn chill, and the leaves were turning that specific shade of orange that Sarah always loved. I'd gotten off work early, a miracle, really. My manager at the gym had to leave for a family emergency, so I volunteered to close up, which meant I'd be home by 8 instead of 9:30. I stopped by her favorite Thai restaurant on the way home, picking up pad thai and spring rolls. I was thinking maybe we could actually have a nice evening together. Watch a movie. Talk about something other than wedding plans and bills. Just be together, the way we used to be. When I walked into our apartment, I could hear her voice immediately. She was on the phone in our bedroom, and her door was closed. That should have been the first red flag. She never closed the door when she was home alone. But I just set the food down on the kitchen counter and started pulling out plates, trying to give her privacy for whatever work call she was on. Except it wasn't a work call. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I really wasn't. But our apartment was small, and her voice was getting louder. Emotional. The kind of tone you don't use with a colleague or a client. I can't keep doing this, I heard her say. He doesn't suspect anything, but I feel terrible every time I look at him. My hand stopped moving. The plate I was holding suddenly felt impossibly heavy. I know, she continued. But what am I supposed to do? Just end a 4-year relationship. Cancel a wedding. Tell everyone that I've been. God, I can't even say it out loud. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I stood there in our tiny kitchen, frozen, listening to my entire world crack apart through a closed door. Tuesday night. Yeah, he'll be at work. He's always at work. Then silence. Then a laugh. A soft, intimate laugh that I recognized because it used to be reserved for me. I miss you too, she whispered. I don't remember walking to the bedroom door. I don't remember opening it. But suddenly I was standing there, and she was sitting on our bed, and her face went completely white when she saw me. I have to go, she said quickly into the phone, then hung up. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. We just stared at each other across the space of our bedroom, a space that suddenly felt like a canyon. How long? I finally asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Flat. Distant. Jake, How long, Sarah? She looked down at her hands. 3 months. 3 months. A quarter of a year. All those late nights at work. All those times she said she was too tired to talk. All those moments when I thought we were just going through a rough patch that every couple experiences. Who is it? I asked. Does it matter? It matters to me. She was crying now. Someone from work. It just happened. I didn't plan it. I didn't want to hurt you. I actually laughed at that. A harsh, broken sound. You didn't want to hurt me. You've been sleeping with someone else for 3 months, planning to marry me, and you didn't want to hurt me. I was going to tell you, she said, standing up. I just didn't know how. I didn't know when. The wedding is. There's no wedding, I said. And just like that, 4 years were over. The next few weeks were a blur. I moved out that same night, threw whatever I could grab into 2 suitcases, and went to stay with my brother Marcus across town. I was numb. Not angry yet, that would come later. Just numb. Like someone had reached into my chest and removed something essential, leaving a hollow space behind. I called off work for a week. Lost one of my jobs because of it, actually, but I couldn't bring myself to care. I spent most of my time lying on Marcus's couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how I'd missed something so obvious. Marcus did his best. Brought me food I didn't eat. Forced me to shower. Didn't ask too many questions. She's telling people it was mutual, he told me one evening, his voice careful. The breakup. She's saying you both just grew apart. I closed my eyes. Of course she was. Easier than admitting the truth. Easier than being the bad guy. You should tell people what really happened, Marcus said. What's the point? I asked. It doesn't change anything. But I was wrong. Because things were about to get so much worse. It started with a phone call from my mother. Jake, honey, I just got a very disturbing message from Sarah's mother, she said, her voice tight with concern. She's saying some things that can't possibly be true. What things? I asked, sitting up on the couch. She's saying that Sarah ended the relationship because you forced yourself on her. That you? Oh God, I can't even say it. Please tell me this isn't true. The world tilted. My vision actually blurred for a second. What? The word came out as barely a whisper. Mrs. Peterson called me crying, saying her daughter finally told her the real reason she left you. That you'd been pressuring her. That on the night you broke up, you. Jake, she's using the word rape. I couldn't breathe. Literally could not get air into my lungs. Mom, I managed. Mom, I swear to God, I never. I know, baby. I know. But she's telling people. Jake, she's going to the police. The phone slipped from my hand. I heard my mother's voice, tiny and distant, calling my name, but I couldn't respond. I just sat there, my entire body shaking, as the full weight of what was happening crashed over me. She wasn't just covering up her affair. She was rewriting our entire story. She was turning herself into a victim and me into a monster. And who would people believe? The charming, well-liked Sarah who everyone adored. Or me, the quiet guy who worked 2 jobs and didn't have much of a social life. Marcus found me like that 20 minutes later. Still sitting on the couch, staring at nothing, the phone on the floor beside me. Jake. Man, what happened? I told him. Watching his face go from concern to horrified to furious. That's insane, he said. That's criminal. She can't just accuse you of. She already did, I said. My voice sounded dead. And people are going to believe her. 2 days later, 2 detectives showed up at Marcus's door. Detective Rivera and Detective Chun. One older, one younger. Both with expressions that told me they'd already made up their minds about what kind of person I was. They asked if I'd come down to the station to answer some questions. Voluntary, they said. Just trying to get your side of things. Marcus wanted to call a lawyer immediately, but I said no. I had nothing to hide. I tell them the truth, and the truth would be enough. I've never been more wrong about anything in my life. At the station, they put me in a small, windowless room. The kind you see in crime shows, with a mirror that's obviously one-way glass and a table bolted to the floor. They started gentle. Asked me about my relationship with Sarah. How long we'd been together. Whether we'd had any problems. We broke up because she was having an affair, I said. I found out about it a few weeks ago. That's why we ended things. Detective Rivera nodded, writing something down. And how did that make you feel? Finding out she was cheating. How do you think it made me feel? I said. I was devastated. Angry. Betrayed. Angry enough to hurt her. And there it was. The shift. The moment when I stopped being a witness and became a suspect. I never touched Sarah, I said, my voice hard. Not once. Not ever. Not the way you're implying. She says differently, Detective Chen said, leaning forward. She says that on the night of October 14th, you came home early, found her on the phone, and when she tried to break up with you, you forced yourself on her. I felt like I was falling. Like the floor had opened up beneath me. That's a lie, I said. That's a complete lie. I came home, I heard her on the phone with whoever she was cheating with, and I left. That same night. I didn't. I would never. So you're saying she's lying? Rivera asked. Yes. She's lying to cover up her affair. She's lying because it's easier to make me the villain than admit what she did. They exchanged a glance. The kind of glance that said they didn't believe me. For 3 hours, they asked me the same questions in different ways. Trying to trip me up. Trying to get me to contradict myself. Trying to get me to admit to something I didn't do. When they finally let me go, they told me not to leave town. Told me the investigation was ongoing. Told me not to contact Sarah. I walked out of that police station feeling like I was sleepwalking through a nightmare. Like at any moment I'd wake up and none of this would be real. But it was real. It was happening. And it was only going to get worse. The rumor spread like wildfire. Within days, everyone knew. Everyone had an opinion. Friends I'd known for years stopped answering my calls. Coworkers at the gym, the job I still had, started avoiding me. When I walked into a room, conversations would stop. People would stare. Someone spray-painted rapist on Marcus's garage door. We had to repaint it twice because people kept doing it again. My social media accounts were flooded with messages. Some from people I knew, most from strangers. All of them convinced of my guilt. You're a monster. I hope you rot in prison. Men like you deserve to die. I stopped going online. Stopped checking my phone except for calls from Marcus, my mom, or my lawyer. Yes, I'd finally hired one. My lawyer's name was Patricia Monroe. She was in her 50s, sharp as a knife, and expensive. Money I didn't have. But Marcus helped me pay for her because he believed me when no one else did. This is a he said, she said situation, Patricia told me in her office. No physical evidence because nothing happened. It's your word against hers. So what do I do? I asked. We build a defense. We show that she has a motive to lie. We establish your character. We find witnesses who can testify that you're not the kind of person who would do this. And if we can't convince them. She looked at me with something that might have been pity. Then you need to prepare yourself for the possibility of going to trial. And losing. That night, I sat in Marcus's guest room, the room that had become my home, and I let myself break. Really break. I cried for hours. Not quiet, dignified tears. Loud, ugly sobs that shook my entire body. Because I realized something terrifying, the truth might not matter. My innocence might not matter. If people wanted to believe I was guilty, no amount of evidence or testimony would change their minds. I was going to lose everything. My reputation. My future. Possibly my freedom. And there was nothing I could do about it. I spent 2 months in that dark place. 2 months of isolation, shame, and fear. 2 months of watching my life disintegrate while I waited for the legal system to decide my fate. But then something shifted. I was sitting in Marcus's backyard one evening, watching the sunset, when I realized something. I was letting Sarah's lie define me. I was letting her control the narrative. I was acting like a guilty man trying to hide, when I should have been acting like an innocent man demanding justice. I want to fight back, I told Patricia the next day. She looked up from her files. What do you mean? I mean I want to be proactive. I'm tired of defending myself. I want to show people who I really am. I want to expose what she's really doing. Jake, you need to be careful. Anything you do publicly could hurt your case. My case is already hurt, I said. Everyone thinks I'm guilty. Everyone's already decided. I need to change that. She studied me for a long moment. What are you thinking? I'm thinking I need to tell my story. My side. Before this goes to trial. Before more people believe her lies. Over the next week, I worked with Patricia to craft a statement. Not a defense. Not a denial. Just my truth. I talked about our relationship. The good parts and the bad parts. The cheating I discovered. The breakup. The accusation that came after. I didn't call Sarah a liar. I didn't attack her. I just laid out the facts, calmly and clearly, and let people draw their own conclusions. Then I did something that scared me more than anything. I posted it publicly. On social media. For everyone to see. Within hours, it had been shared thousands of times. The response was split down the middle. Half the people who read it called me brave. Said they believed me. Said they'd suspected Sarah's story didn't add up. Some even came forward with their own experiences. People who'd been falsely accused, people who'd been in relationships with manipulative partners, people who understood what I was going through. The other half called me worse things than before. Said I was trying to victimize Sarah all over again. Said I was using my privilege as a man to silence a survivor. Said I was disgusting for making this public. But something had shifted. People were talking. People were questioning. People were no longer just accepting Sarah's version of events as the only truth. A few days after I posted my statement, I got a message from someone named Jessica. She said she worked at Sarah's firm. She said she'd been following the story. And she said she had information I needed to hear. We met at a coffee shop across town. She was nervous, kept looking over her shoulder like she thought someone might be watching. I probably shouldn't be telling you this, she said. But I can't. I can't let her ruin your life when I know the truth. What truth? I asked. Sarah's been bragging about her affair. 4 months. She'd talk about it in the break room. About this guy she was seeing, how exciting it was, how she was planning to leave you but wanted to wait until after the holidays because of the wedding deposits. My hands clenched around my coffee cup. When the breakup happened, Jessica continued, everyone at work knew why. Sarah told us. Said you'd found out about the affair and ended things. She was upset, but she wasn't acting like a victim. She was acting like someone who got caught. Then why did she? I think she panicked, Jessica said. When you posted that statement about the affair online, when people started judging her, I think she needed a way to flip the narrative. Make herself the victim instead of the cheater. So she accused me of rape. Jessica nodded, her eyes filling with tears. I'm so sorry. I wanted to say something sooner, but I was scared. Scared of losing my job, scared of being called a traitor to women or I don't know. But what she's doing is wrong. And I'll testify to that if I have to. For the first time in months, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. Patricia was ecstatic when I told her about Jessica. This is huge, she said. An unbiased third party who can testify to Sarah's state of mind before and after the accusation. This could change everything. But we didn't stop there. Patricia hired a private investigator. Not to dig up dirt on Sarah, we weren't interested in character assassination, but to establish a timeline. To prove that the accusation only came after I'd exposed the affair. To show the pattern. The investigator found more than we expected. Text messages between Sarah and her affair partner, talking about how to deal with me if I made things difficult. Social media posts from the week before the accusation, showing Sarah at parties, laughing, living her life, not the behavior of someone who'd just been assaulted. We found the restaurant receipt from the Thai food I'd bought that night. Timestamped at 7:43 p.m. Security footage from the building showing me entering at 7:58 p.m. and leaving at 8:31 p.m. with 2 suitcases. A 33-minute window that contradicted Sarah's claim that I'd assaulted her for hours. We found messages from Sarah to her friends, dated after the breakup, complaining about me telling people about her affair. He's making me look like the bad guy, she'd written. I need to do something about this. 4 days later, she went to the police. The pattern was clear. The motive was clear. The lie was clear. But proving a lie isn't the same as proving innocence. Not in the court of public opinion. Sarah reached out to me through her lawyer. She wanted to meet. Privately. Patricia advised against it strongly. It could be a trap. She could be recording. She could use anything you say against you. I need to hear what she has to say, I told her. I need to look her in the eye. We met in a neutral location, a park downtown, in public, with Patricia and Sarah's lawyer present but sitting at a distance. She looked different. Thinner. Tired. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wasn't wearing makeup. She looked like someone who hadn't been sleeping. Good, I thought, then immediately felt guilty for thinking it. Jake, she said, her voice small. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I didn't say anything. Just waited. I want you to know that I never meant for things to go this far, she said. When I went to the police, I was scared. Scared of what people would think. Scared of losing everything. So you decided to destroy me instead. She flinched. I thought it would be easier. I thought people would believe me and move on and you just, I don't know, disappear. Start over somewhere else. You accused me of rape, Sarah. You told the police, our families, our friends, complete strangers on the internet that I raped you. Do you understand what that's done to my life? Tears were streaming down her face now. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, I said. My voice was shaking. Sorry doesn't give me back my reputation. Sorry doesn't erase the months I've spent living in fear that I'd go to prison for something I didn't do. I'll tell them the truth, she said suddenly. I'll go to the police and tell them I lied. I'll tell everyone. I'll fix this. I looked at her for a long moment. This woman I'd loved. This woman I'd planned to marry. This woman who tried to destroy my life to save her own reputation. Why now? I asked. Why, after all this time, are you suddenly willing to tell the truth? She was silent for a moment. Then, because my lawyer showed me the evidence your investigator found. The text. The timeline. The witness statements. He told me that if this goes to trial, I won't just lose. I'll be charged with filing a false police report. With perjury. He said I could go to jail. And there it was. She wasn't confessing because it was the right thing to do. She was confessing because she was going to get caught anyway. I stood up. You're going to recant your statement. You're going to admit to everyone, the police, our families, everyone you told, that you lied. And you're going to do it because it's the truth, not because you're scared of the consequences. I will, she said quickly. I promise. I'll do it today. No, I said. You do it with your lawyer present, on the record, so there's no question. Patricia will arrange it. She nodded, still crying. I started to walk away, then stopped and turned back. I loved you, I said. I would have done anything for you. And you tried to send me to prison. I want you to remember that. I want you to think about what you did every single day for the rest of your life. Then I walked away and didn't look back. Sarah recanted 2 days later. Formally. With her lawyer present and everything documented. She admitted to fabricating the accusation. Admitted to lying to the police. Admitted that she'd done it to cover up her affair and avoid social judgment. The police dropped their investigation immediately. Sarah was charged with filing a false police report. She pled guilty and was sentenced to community service, probation, and a fine. No jail time, which bothered me, but Patricia said it was the best we could hope for. The news spread almost as fast as the accusation had. My name was cleared. Publicly. Officially. But the damage was done. Some people apologized. Friends who'd abandoned me reached out, saying they were sorry they doubted me. Family members who'd been distant suddenly wanted to reconnect. I accepted some of the apologies. Rejected others. Because sorry doesn't erase the pain. Sorry doesn't give you back the months of your life you spent in hell. Other people never apologized at all. They just pretended they'd never doubted me in the first place. Or they quietly disappeared from my life without explanation. And some people still believed Sarah. Still believed I'd somehow manipulated the situation. Still believed that false accusations are so rare that I must be lying somehow. You can't win with everyone. I learned that. I stayed with Marcus for another 3 months after everything was over. Not because I had to, but because I wasn't ready to be alone yet. We'd sit on his couch in the evenings, watching basketball games or terrible reality TV, not talking much. Just existing in the same space. It was exactly what I needed. Slowly, very slowly, I started putting my life back together. I got a new job. Something different from what I'd done before. I wanted a fresh start, something that wasn't connected to any part of my old life. I started therapy. Twice a week at first, then once a week. Dr. Sanders was patient, never pushing me to forgive or move on or any of those platitudes people love to throw around. She just let me process. Let me be angry. Let me grieve the life I'd lost. What happened to you was traumatic, she told me. You're allowed to still be hurt by it. You're allowed to take as long as you need to heal. That permission meant everything. I started running in the mornings. Just a mile at first, then 2, then 5. Something about the physical exhaustion helped quiet my mind. Helped me feel in control of at least one part of my life. I reconnected with old friends from college, people who hadn't been part of the drama, who knew me before Sarah. They reminded me of who I used to be. Before the relationship. Before the nightmare. Just me. I even started dating again, though cautiously. Very cautiously. The idea of trusting someone, of being vulnerable, of believing someone wouldn't hurt me, it terrified me. But I tried. Because I didn't want Sarah's actions to define the rest of my life. I didn't want to become bitter and closed off and unable to connect with people. Some days were better than others. About a year after everything ended, I was sitting in a coffee shop, a different one from where I'd met Jessica, but similar. Working on my laptop, when I overheard a conversation at the next table. Two women, probably in their mid-20s, talking about a friend who'd just gone through a breakup. I told her to just say he was abusive, one of them said. Like, I know he wasn't, but it's easier than admitting she cheated. People are more sympathetic. My blood went cold. Isn't that kind of messed up, the other woman said. I mean, maybe. But men get away with everything anyway. What's the harm? I closed my laptop and left. I couldn't sit there and listen to that conversation without saying something I'd regret. But it crystallized something for me. Something I'd been thinking about but hadn't fully processed until that moment. What Sarah did to me wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of something bigger. A culture where accusations are weapons. Where the truth is secondary to the narrative. Where innocent people can have their lives destroyed with just a few words. And that terrified me. Not just for myself, but for everyone. For men who might be falsely accused. For women whose real stories of assault would be doubted because of cases like mine. For the entire concept of justice. I realized I couldn't just move on and pretend it never happened. I had to do something. I started writing. Not for publication at first. Just for myself. Processing everything that had happened. Trying to make sense of it. But the more I wrote, the more I realized that my story needed to be told. Not for revenge. Not to attack Sarah. But to show people what false accusations really do. The human cost. The lasting damage. I reached out to a journalist who'd covered the case, one of the few who'd actually been fair and balanced in their reporting. Her name was Michelle Torres. I want to tell my full story, I told her. Everything. The accusation. The investigation. The evidence. The recantation. All of it. She agreed immediately. The article came out 6 months later. Long form. Detailed. Honest. Michelle had interviewed me, Patricia, Jessica, even Detective Rivera, who admitted they'd initially believed Sarah and were shocked when the evidence contradicted her story. The article went viral. Not in the sensational way my case had originally, but in a meaningful way. People read it. People shared it. People started conversations about false accusations, about the presumption of innocence, about how we treat people who've been accused. Some people criticized me. Said I was undermining real survivors. Said I was part of the problem. But more people thanked me. Men who'd been through similar experiences. Women who'd seen their brothers, fathers, or friends falsely accused. People who just believed that the truth matters. I started getting invited to speak. Podcasts. Panel discussions. University events. People wanted to hear my story. Wanted to understand what I'd been through. At first, I said no to everything. I just wanted to live my life quietly. But then I realized, this was my purpose now. This was how I took something horrible and made it mean something. By preventing it from happening to others. By changing the conversation. By demanding better. So I started saying yes. The talks I give now aren't about revenge or anger. They're not about attacking anyone. They're about truth. About justice. About the importance of evidence. About believing survivors without destroying the accused. About finding the balance. What happened to me shouldn't happen to anyone, I tell audiences. But what Sarah did shouldn't happen to anyone either. Real survivors deserve to be believed and supported. The falsely accused deserve justice. These two things aren't contradictory. They are both necessary for a just society. I talk about the importance of investigations, of evidence, of not rushing to judgment on social media before all the facts are known. I was lucky, I say. I had evidence. I had witnesses. I had the resources to hire a lawyer and an investigator. But what about the people who don't? What about the men who are falsely accused and can't prove their innocence? What happens to them? The response is always intense. Some people cry. Some people come up after to share their own stories. Some people thank me for being brave enough to speak out. And some people still don't believe me. Still think I'm somehow lying or manipulating the situation. I've learned to be okay with that. You can't convince everyone. But if I can reach even one person, if I can prevent even one false accusation or help even one person who's been falsely accused, then all of this was worth it.